everybody, it's me, Miss T. I'm here to help you today with your narrative outline. So let's go through it together. Your first step is really just to get a strong understanding of what a narrative essay is. So you can do this by clicking on Activity 1, Beyond the 5-Paragraph Essay. So you're going to want to go through all of this information, which has been taught in the Zoom lesson from Monday. But just basically go over it again and make sure that you understand the difference between a short story and what a narrative essay is, and sort of like a traditional essay or a non-narrative essay and what a narrative essay is. Make sure you understand exactly what it is, and make sure that you can sort of analyze someone else's short story or someone else's narrative essay, I should say, by going through April Fools on Polar Circus and answering all of the questions here to make sure that you understand why it's not just an example of short fiction, it's also a narrative essay. So go through that first, and there are also two other examples of narrative essays. We have How to Pronounce Knife and Fish Cheeks. Both of those are excellent examples of narrative essays. Once you have a very strong understanding of what a narrative essay is, you're going to want to actually complete your narrative essay outline. Now, at this point, you are not actually creating an essay, just the outline, but we'll go from there. So in our course calendar, I have linked a template that you can use to complete this assignment. And obviously you're going to want to open this course calendar and sort of look at the FAQs so that you know what you're doing. So the due date is here, the percentage that it is worth is here, and the template is linked here. So it asks you for a thesis statement, and obviously with your essay, you're not going to be having a thesis statement as clear as you would in a 5-paragraph essay where it's the last sentence in the first paragraph or the introduction. Instead, you're going to allude to that thesis, or you're going to sort of expose it as the essay goes on. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't need to know what the thesis is. Obviously, if you're implying it as you move through your paper, you need to know what it is very clearly if you're the writer. So what if you just don't know what to write? You might be overthinking thinking it a little bit. So say in 3 sentences, just 3, something that happened in your life that you learned something from, and you can expand that into your outline. So let's have a look at the outline as well. So again, you're not writing a full essay. At this point, you're really just creating an outline. So now that you've read and analyzed a personal narrative essay, obviously the April Fool's one, you are going to prepare an outline for an essay that you could write. So at this point, you're not going to go so far as actually writing the essay, just sort of making your outline for something that you could write about if you choose to do so later. So the first step is brainstorming your topic. So you need to come up with what kind of a story you could choose from your own life that you learned something from. So in your essay, you will both tell the story and analyze the significance of that story. Try to think of a story that led you to an important belief that you have. Maybe it's a belief you have about what's important in life, or a discovery you made about yourself. So you can brainstorm any way that you're comfortable with. It might be creating a mind map or doing some free writing. Either way, you're not handing in the brainstorming part. It's just a step you need to take in order to come up with your thesis. So your thesis for an essay like this is different from other thesis statements. So for example, some of the thesis statements you might have come up with in the past might be something like Romeo and Juliet demonstrate their love for each other and blah, 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 blah. This is not what that is. It's not a literary essay. Instead of finding evidence in a short story or in a play or in a novel, instead the evidence that you're finding is in your own life. So you're going to think of it more like a belief statement. So I believe that by exploring my own fears, I become wiser. And then you're going to think that you have to support your belief statement with examples from your story. You're not necessarily proving it. You're just sort of sharing something from your own life that helped you to learn something. So remember, in many narrative essays, the thesis statement never appears very clearly. So in this, if we use the same example, in this narrative essay, it may never say, I believe that by exploring my own fears, I become wiser. Instead, it is shown through something that happened in the writer's life. So you still need to know what that thesis is. So when you're ready, you're going to write it here. Now, when you get to step 3, you're going to map out your story and you're going to think about how each element supports your belief. You're going to write 1 to 3 points in each square. I would suggest writing 3 if you want a level 4, and you want to make sure they're really detailed so that if you actually did go to create this essay, you would have a very clear map of where you're headed. So you have the parts of the story, what happened at the beginning, middle, and end, and then how does that relate to your belief or your thesis statement. So if there is a part of your story that does not support the belief or the thesis statement, you do not include it in your outline, and you may not include it at all in your story unless it's just, to sort of set the scene or create that setting or, some imagery. So what you're doing is basically what I would do is write your story down first and then write how it relates to your belief or your thesis statement. So that's basically all you're going to be doing. In order to complete this, you can click File, make a copy, and then just fill it in directly here. And then you are going to submit that to the Dropbox, which I'll show you in a second. So once you have completed your outline, you're going to download it as a PDF, and you are going to submit it here to the narrative essay outline. So when you're ready, all you have to do is just sort of go through the rubric, of course, and then you're going to submit it down here. So you're just going to add a file and then submit that file to the Dropbox when you're ready. So before you submit, of course, you're going to want to go over your rubric here and make sure that you are getting as high a mark as you can. Ideally, we're shooting for a level 4. So you need to show a thorough understanding of the form of the narrative essay. And that's why I had you go through and read the April Fool's story, read Pronunciation of Knife, read Fish Cheeks, understand them well, and analyze the April Fool's story by answering the questions in the content. You're going to show a thorough understanding of the form of the narrative essay in your outline. Your thesis statement shows a thorough use of creative and critical thinking skills. Obviously, you need a really clear understanding of what you're proving or what you're showing, and each part of your outline needs to relate to that. You need to use the outline to communicate a clear thesis and essay plan in a very thorough manner. So that means probably 3 very detailed points in each of the boxes of the outline. The student maps out the essay, beginning, middle, and end in a very thorough degree. So your story needs to follow that narrative structure. You need to be able to see sort of the beginning of the story. You need to have the middle and the end to be very clear, and each part of it really needs to relate to your thesis statement. If it's not relating to your thesis statement, you probably do not need to include it. So once you're sure you've done and you've submitted your narrative outline, just sort of keep it in the back of your mind and keep remembering it, because you may actually choose to expand that into a full essay later in the course. So as always, if you have questions, concerns, anything at all, email me and I'm here to help. Have a great afternoon, guys.